Sveiki visi žmonės, čia aš Jordanas Roboks, taigi šiandien aš, kaip ir prižadėjau, nesukirtau dar pilnai 70 subscriberių, bet labai vis tiek dėku. Taigi šiandien ką aš darysiu, tai darysiu savo anime reviewą. Tai ką, pradėkim.
Hi, my name's Joe, and I'm not a big fan of anime. Not for any particular reason, I just could never...
Dar prieš tai stengsiuosi daryti kuo mažiau pauzių ir atleiskit, jeigu jūs labai annoyins, tai tiesiog sorry.
never get into it. And to be honest, I never really tried. But about a year ago, I found something that was so strange I couldn't pass it up. This thing was Girl and Panzer, which, to be put simply, is a high school drama with tanks. And although this sounds like the dumbest thing you have ever heard, and believe me, I did too, it kept true to a lot of the history that surrounds these World War II vehicles and their time periods. So I thought I'd analyze it. This is the history behind Girl and Panzer. The first episode opens with a flash forward to episode 3, with the Ori team scouting an enemy tankery team in a match. And after making a plan, our main protagonist Miho and her friend Yukuri climb into their tank and begin to move. We are then introduced to the 5 main tanks of the series. First, a Type 89 medium. This Japanese tank was designed in 1928 and used by Japan mostly from 1932 to 1942 and saw action all throughout Asia during its lifetime, from the Battle of Shanghai to Konkan-Gol and even the Philippines and Burma. Second, we see a Czech 38T medium tank. Produced in 1938, this Czechoslovakian tank made its name in the German army after the annexation and served from 1939 to 1945, with many variants being made using its chassis. Third, we have a Sturmgeschütz 3, or Stug 3 for short.
Na, man tas Stug iš tikrųjų gan gal ir yra juokingas, nes paskui jūs vienoje daly pamatysit, tokį funny, kaip galima sakyti, Stugo failą, bet iš tikrųjų man Stugas gal labiausiai patiktų, nes panzeris neturi labai daug šarvų, o Stugas iš priekio maždaug 50 gal milimetrų. Tai aš pasirinkčiau maždaug Stugą. Ir tęsim.
Assault gun made out of the chassis of a Panzer III and designed by Germany in 1937. Of the 8 variants produced, this one is an F model, sporting the 75mm L48 gun. The tank saw service in the German army from 1940 to 1945 on all fronts. Fourth, we have an American M3 Lee medium tank. Designed in 1940, the Lee saw service mostly in North Africa with the Americans, and with the British as the Grant variant. Many also saw service on the Eastern Front under Lend-Lease. Lastly, we see what I would arguably call the true main character of the series, the Panzer IV, or Mark IV as it's called in the show. Designed in the late 1930s by the German army, originally...
Iš tikrųjų, Mark, aš taip nemanau, kad tikrai vadinčiau, nes Mark iš tikrųjų būtų kaip... Yra tank Markas, bet tikrai ne German tankas. What the hell? Oops.
As an infantry support vehicle, this tank over the course of the war became the backbone of the German armored force and saw service on all fronts in Europe during World War II and in various other countries post-war. Of the 10 variants produced, this one is a D model, but it is later upgraded. Now, unfortunately, that is about it as far as tanks go for this episode. But here's what else goes on. Back in the present, after the flash forward ends, we meet our protagonist Miho. New to the school she is attending, Ori High. On her first day, she meets 2 friends, Sayori and Hana. Miho mentions that Sayori's birthday is June 22nd, which is the date of the German invasion of Russia, Operation Barbarossa, in 1941.
Just stop! Just stop!
Some random memes on the video. Oh my god. Va Lietuvainė. Aš galvojau, Vilna? What the fuck? Seniau Vilnius, norit pasakyti, būdavo toliau nuo Kauno net? Makes no fucking sense.
And that Hana's is December 16th, the same date as Germany's invasion of the Ardennes, codenamed Operation Watch on the Rhine, in 1944.
Nuts.
The 3 are instantly inseparable because the script requires for them to be.
That's a best friend! Best friend! Best friends! Best friend! Best friend!
After this, we first meet the student council, who inform Miho that the sport of tankery will be resumed at the school, and they quickly pressure her to join.
Does she have a monocle? God, that's scary.
Later that day, the student council interrupts their class for an assembly
Štai ir atėjo ta dalis ir paaiškinimas, kodėl niekas nemiršta. Tiesiog pamatysi patys.
about electives and the sport of tankery is introduced. Now this is where you really have to begin to suspend your disbelief, because to sum it up quickly, tankery is where high school girls fight World War II style tanks for sport, but nobody dies somehow.
That looks fucking awesome!
The student council does show a
Oh
video
my
of someone
fucking
explaining
God.
this, and in it you do catch a glimpse of a British Mark IV, a German A7V, and a French Whippet tank, along with a few shots of Panzer IIIs. Through the assembly, Miho looks uncomfortable, but many future characters are shown being very interested. Miho, of course, picks a different elective, and her friends, who she just met literally today, are convinced to change their minds and not do tankery to support her because the script calls for it and the show ends. Just kidding. Upon hearing Miho has picked another elective, the student council calls her to the office and threaten her with expulsion if she doesn't join the tank club.
Do it or I expel your ass. How in the hell does that work?
Her friends defend her, but she decides to do it anyways, and the final scene is the first meeting of the tankery team consisting of 5 groups. Our main characters, the student council, the history club, the volleyball team, and a handful of freshmen. They then find the Panzer IV in the garage with Miho saying it can be fixed up. And that's episode 1. The episode begins with the 5 teams looking for more tanks to complete their team. The tanks found are the ones shown in the previous episode, with the 38T found by Miho and the gang while being stalked by and later meeting Yukari, my spirit animal.
It was a mainstay of Field Marshal Rommel's 7th Panzer Division and was an important tank in the initial stages of the Blitzkrieg. You went kind of crazy there.
The Stug 3 is found by the History Club, the Type 89 is found by the Volleyball Club, and the M3 Lee is found by the freshmen. As the tanks are assembled and the characters...
Pala.
M3...
The hell? Čia triušis? Aš niekada net nepastebėjau, kai pirmą kartą tikrai žiūrėjau. Holy Jesus.
Lee is found by the freshmen. As the tanks are assembled and the characters discuss and claim them, 2 historical errors are made. First, Monocle Girl refers to the 38T as a light tank, when it was classed as a medium by the German army. The second is this line.
You fool! The Assault 3 is a wonderful tank. It was able to repel the fierce Russian attacks. Apologize to the Finnish!
Now this line may be wrong because it sounds like she is referring to the Winter War, when the Finns only used Stugs in the Continuation War. Also from now on they always call the Stug the Assault 3, which isn't wrong but it's weird to me. The 5 teams claim their
Rest in
tanks, decided on
pepperoni.
sticking with the ones they found, and this creates a few crew problems. The Panzer IV is currently understaffed with only 4 members and needing 5 with a commander, loader, gunner, driver, and radio operator. The 38T is understaffed, needing 4 crew and only having 3, a commander who also works the gun, a loader, a driver, and a radio operator. And lastly, the M3 Lee, which is the American version of the tank and only has 6 crew when it needs 7. A commander, 2 loaders, 2 gunners, a driver, and a radio operator. If this were the British M3 Grant variant, they would be fine, as the British eliminated the radio operator by creating a bulge in the back of the turret to place the radio by the commander. The Type 89 and the Stug 3 are crewed to full capacity. The teams then fix up their tanks just by washing them somehow, and they await their tankery instructor to come teach them the next day. That night, Miho and the gang visit a tank store, something I really wish existed, and we see a few references within. The walls are lined with everything from uniforms to guns to sprockets and road wheels. Also, Yukuri is my spirit animal.
That's not true. That's not true at all. They each have their own personalities, their very own traits, and they change depending on who's operating.
There's also an A7V like the one seen previously on the TV in the corner, and the Tank Arcade game is utilizing a German tank sight on the screen and the steering wheel of a Tiger I as controls. And I also think this game is a reference to the 1980 arcade game Battlezone. They also take a few seconds to BS the way tankery is safe.
It's okay. They use live rounds in matches, but they're used with an emphasis on the participant's safety.
And there is an exposition dump about the upcoming tankery tournament
What?
and the news report on the TV. The girls then go home and eat using German mess kits. The next day, Miho runs into a human existential crisis on the way to school, and that becomes important later.
I was forever trapped in an infinite timeline of pain.
Taigi, manau, kad tikrai dauguma žmonių pagalvos, oh my god, čia flipping zombies.
And suffering. I envy death.
At tankery practice, the instructor enters being airdropped from
My
a cargo
favorite
plane in a
part.
Japanese Type 10 main battle tank, the only modern tank used in the series. Although her uniform looks very Type
Taigi, jeigu pažiūrėsite Tas žmogus praleido vieną dalyką, kad šis tankas sutraiškė tą mašiną.
10 main battle tank, the only modern tank used in the series.
Makes sense.
Although her uniform looks very American, this is the female dress uniform of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces, complete with hat. After not giving any advice at all, she throws everyone into a mock battle, and from what I can tell, the crew positions left unoccupied by the teams are the 38T having no loader, the Panzer IV having no radio operator, and the M3 Lee having no loader or gunner for the 75mm in the hull. I have no idea where the 6th girl on their team went, because they should be able to at least cover the gunner position, but she's nowhere to be seen inside the tank.
This is a dumb joke.
Miho
Makes
also
sense.
says this.
The tank commander indicates which direction to go with their feet. Yeah, she kicks the operator in the shoulder in the direction she wants to go.
But this shouldn't apply to the tanks shown. All of the tanks on the team had internal radios for communication. The kick the driver technique was used for tanks where this was not available. The ones I can think of are early at Soviet tanks where the fighting compartment and engine were so loud and the commander, who was also the gunner, would kick the driver in the shoulders to have him turn the tank. To communicate with the loader, also, he used hand signals for what shells to load. The match begins with the Type 89 and Stug 3 teams teaming up on Miho and the gang, in a not-so-subtle reference to Japan and Germany's alliance in the Second World War. But nobody can hit anything, so they're fine, and the episode ends with them about to run over existential crisis girl in a field.
Oh, pala!
So then,
Aš tikrai taip manau, nes paskutiniam, kaip galima sakyti, prieš tai jūs matėt, kaip ėjo tas zombis, galima sakyti, tai jinai dabar
about to
čia,
run over
man atrodo,
existential crisis
esa.
girl in a field. The episode begins with existential crisis girl cheating death, jumping on the tank, and chilling in the turret. The tank comes to a bridge, and Miho gets out to guide it, even though 5 seconds ago she said that it wasn't safe,
It's dangerous, so please get in the tank.
and guides them into a steel cable that breaks right as they get shot in the rear by the Stug, and survive even though in episode 1 Miho said this.
Our armor is weak, so we're out if we get hit head on.
And in reality, that shell at that range should have gone in one end of the tank and out the other.
Yeah, it's the intention was to kill you, Nine.
But as a result, Hana gets knocked
Nine.
out cold, and there.
Dead in the water!
Luckily, Existential Crisis Girl, or Mako, takes over and learns how to drive by reading 3 lines of the manual.
Are you sure about that?
Then Yukuri knocks out the Stug, Type 89, and 38T with 3 shots, and the M3 Lee is taken out from engine failure.
That felt kinda good.
Then there's a fan service scene where everybody picks their jobs on the tank. I refuse to acknowledge the camouflage scene.
What is that? What the fuck is that?
Čia
With
visai
the confidence of one
nekamuflažas.
trial match against each other under their belts, the team challenges another school to a skirmish. And this introduces arguably one of the best things about the show. All the other schools, unlike Ori, are modeled after specific countries that were combatants in World War II. They use only their tanks, dress in their uniforms, march to their songs, and best of all, are all complete stereotypes of that country. And the first country they meet for the skirmish is the British, or St. Gloriana's Girls' Academy, where, no kidding, each character is named for a different kind of tea. Also, most of the time that they are on screen, the song the British Grenadiers plays, and it makes me smile to think that a song that British soldiers marched to in the 18th century is still being played and known by many. The always composed British commander Darjeeling accepts their invite for the skirmish. The British team sports 1 Mark IV Churchill infantry tank, a heavy tank produced and used by the British from 1941 to 52, and 4 Matilda II infantry tanks, produced and used by the British from 1938 until 1943, with some seeing service.
Dar tai kas yra nerealistiška, kad jūs iš tikrųjų, manau, pastebėjot, kad jeigu esat tikri tankų žinovai, tai žinosit, kad Churchillis, tas, ne šitas, čia Matilda, bet šitas irgi, jie turėtų važiuoti maždaug, kiek čia, kokius 27 km per valandą, abudu mažiau. Gal Churchillis kokį 32, bet nu žiūrim, pamatysit.
Before the match, the British promised to not fight dirty like Saunders or Pravda, the American and Russian schools. Hey Darjeeling, how's that Empire doing? And the match has begun. Also, fun fact, the necklaces the judges at this match are shown wearing are called Fieldgemeinerie, and they are what German military police wore during World War II to denote their status as MPs. Episode 4 is the first real battle we get to see. The battle opens with the same scene as the flash forward in episode 1. Ori takes a position on the high ground and begins the match. This is also the next instance of suspending your disbelief that you must go through. To name a few, that Churchill is moving too fast, that Matilda is
Va.
moving too fast, that Type
Va.
89 is moving too fast, that
Va.
Panzer IV is moving
Pasakė.
too fast. See a pattern here? The most
Ne.
That Type 89 is moving too fast, that
Panzeriai iš tikrųjų juda maždaug tokiu panašiu greičiu.
Panzer IV is moving too fast.
Taip.
See a pattern here? The most egregious of these are the British tanks.
Išskyrus Matildą. Vat, jūs galite patys nuvaryti Matildą, tank speed ir jums parodysi tikrą tanko greitį.
Top speed cross country is only rated at 9 miles per hour, and the Churchill's is rated at 15. In fact, the fastest tank on the whole battlefield is the Panzer 38T at 26.1 miles per hour on road, and all tanks involved look like they're going much faster than that. The 38T and M3 Lee are knocked out, and the remaining 3 Ori tanks retreat much faster than that. The 38T and M3
Palaukit. Šitas M3 Lee komandos visi nariai paliko tanką.
3 Ori tanks retreat to the city, with the British sipping tea as they chase them. One Matilda is taken out along with the Stug 3 and Type 89, leaving the Panzer IV all alone.
Nice job, Irwin. Can do without the flags, huh? Of course not.
Well, until the 38T comes back, it was probably killed.
I wanna go home.
Then the Panzer IV begins to defy all logic and physics in trying to win the match. You can't drift a tank. But the British still end up winning. This battle is one of the more outrageous ones, especially with the Panzer IV's antics at the end, but the exaggerated speed remains a constant throughout the series. After this, some storyline exposition about the characters happens that nobody cares about, but the episode ends with the starting positions for the tournament being selected, with Ori being paired up against Saunders, or the Americans.
Tie amerikiečiai į kovą.
This video is getting long. Episode 5 begins with Miho and the gang eating at a tank-themed shop named the Leclerc Tank Cafe, a reference to the AMX Leclerc main battle tank currently used by the French Armed Forces. And there are a few references inside, including a poster with the cover art of the 1993 manga Happy Tiger, featuring a Tiger 1, and a heavy transport vehicle used to deliver the food. There's then a strategy talk and some exposition, and these guys show up to drop some basic villain lines.
Oh, hey, Miho. I see you managed to stay sober until the afternoon. Congratulations.
Oh, it's Maho and Bitch Pants McFuckwit. Still have those sticks up your asses?
There's also a poster of a T-34 and a poster of a tortoise on the wall back there.
Should be pretty embarrassing if one of those teams beat the veterans that all sat around in their ivory towers coming up with that gold thing.
The girls then head back to school on a Kasuga-class armored cruiser. The next day, the girls go to Yukuri's house looking for her after she wasn't in school, and inside her room there's a treasure trove of World War II references. In fact, instead of listing them all off...
Šitą tanką aš jau atmintinai žinau, šitą irgi. Čia Panzer C, o čia Brumba.
I'm going to label them on the screen as they
Augs C. Nu, bet beveik pataikiau.
come up, because there are literally that many. Also, Yukuri is my spirit animal.
She's so completely into tanks that she can't really find friends that understand her.
After a while, Yukuri returns and reveals that she's been spying on the school they're up against first in the tournament. She plays them a video she took while there, and in it she spots the team's vehicles, which consist almost entirely of N4 Shermans and their variants. The Sherman was an American-made tank developed in 1940 and saw service in the US, British, and Soviet armies throughout World War II, and in many other conflicts under many other flags after that. The variants spotted are the M4A1, which sported the larger T-23 turret and a new 76mm gun, and the M4A6, a rare variant with only 75 build.
Išoja lyg būtų vos ne pom. Jeigu kažką pašausim ir kulka kris ir tarkim nusileisim žmogaus galvos arba į mašiną, ai žinot, nieko tokio, pasitaiko taip.
Engine and a part cast, part welded hull design. Also, a lot of the tanks are shown equipped with sand skirts, which is something the Americans were not fond of and did not use much during the war. At the American school meeting, there's a historical error made. In the order of battle, the girl announcing mentions them using
One Firefly.
Now, this was a real tank that was based off the Sherman series, but it was a conversion made using the British 17-pounder gun. The US Army never used it, and it doesn't make any sense having it on the American team. The last reference in the cutaway is when Yukuri is found out and asked for her class and grade, she responds,
The 6th Armored Division, oddball, Sergeant 3rd Class, huh?
a reference to Donald Sutherland's character in the movie Kelly's Heroes, where he plays a tank commander. Yukari then books it out of there, and back in the present day, they discuss strategy.
Jeez, how'd you get out of there? Oh my god, you got a gun!
Also, Yukari's my
Oh my god. Atseit, turėjo šautuvą ir visus nušovė.
spirit animal.
Tanks were always my friends in the past.
The next day, the crews practice and
Jinai pasakė, kad tankai yra jos draugai. Tai reiškia aš tik vieną dalyką. Jinai neturi draugų.
receive uniforms for the match. After this, we get to formally meet the American team, Saunders High. The stereotypes for this school are pretty much what you would expect. They are filthy rich and have a ton of everything. The most tanks, the largest ship, and a million food trucks. They're also loud and obnoxious and very full of themselves, even bringing cheerleaders to their match.
Hey there, Annie. It's been a while. I see you're still legally dwarf, Ken.
This is the first match of the series with a flag tank that, if taken out by the enemy team, causes an automatic loss for that team. And the rest of the matches in the series are set up this way. After some dialogue, the match starts.
Fight.
And mostly consists of the Americans rushing the Ori team and then the Ori team running away. There's also this scene.
Say, do you know this old joke? The American president used to show off quite a bit. He said, "We have everything in our country." Then a foreign reporter asked him, "Does that include the hotline to hell?"
That I thought was going to be another niche historical reference, but I can't for the life of me figure out what the hell she is talking about. But from what I can gather, it's some kind of statement on the Americans cheating. And yes, of course, the Americans cheat. And this is revealed a few scenes later when they begin listening to Ori's radios.
Isn't that illegal? What did you just say to me? I'm pretty sure this...
Taigi, amerikiečiai sukčiavo. Ir jie sukčiavo kažkaip pagaunant signalą į kitos komandos tanką. Ką jie sako, kai, važiuoja, kokias komandas duoda. Ir jie viską girdi tiesiog.
requires a warrant. Are you some kind of fucking comic?
This may be a reference to the Allies breaking the German Enigma code during World War II. Miho soon figures this out, though, and begins giving fake orders over the radio and texting the real ones via Sayori. They then later lure two Shermans out into the open where one is destroyed by the Stug 3.
Alright, let's cap their flag tank and get the fuck out of Trailer Park now.
This episode begins with the crowd in shock that the Americans lost a tank and Miho continuing to give false orders over the radio. Mental Breakdown Girl begins to get cocky and has her team begin to walk into a trap. The Type 89 runs into the enemy flag tank and they have an awkward moment. I feel like I've seen this before. Also, once again, the Type 89 is an infantry tank.
Oh my god, žiūrėkit. Jis nušovė ir tada kiek dar karių.
Also, once again,
Jam reikės maždaug 8,000 kulkų ir pasistengti tų 8,000 kulkų išvengti. Aišku, nes tos kulkos bus iš priešų.
and the Type 89 is an infantry tank with a top speed of 16 miles an hour, and the Sherman has a top speed of 30 miles an hour, so this shouldn't even be a chase. But thou must do what thine script commands. Also, the script becomes self-aware for a second,
What are you doing? They're only at Type 89, you know?
but the chase leads to the American flag tank being ambushed, and the Ori team chases it with the Americans chasing them. As this girl loses it, spouting Americanisms as she goes.
Our school is on a different level than yours! Who the hell do those girls think they are? They can't do squat. They're trying to come after us! Their school's getting shut down soon anyway!
Then there's an hour of chase scene with the Type 89 and M3 Lee being taken out until the Panzer IV gets to higher ground
Americans.
I have the high ground.
and kills the American tank right as the Firefly kills the Panzer IV, winning Ori the match.
Jei, laimėjo. Štai ir atėjo toksai momentas, kai aš žaidžiu War Thunder ir aš niekada beveik nežiūriu, kaip į kur mane pašauna ir sunaikina. Tai čia galima sakyti toksai replay, tik tais neparodys, ką sunaikino, kokį crew memory modelį ir taip panašiai. Toliau.
And once again, that 17-pounder shot should have liquefied the Panzer IV crew, but this sport is safe somehow.
For God's sake, the Oh, get in the tank!
Then there's some plot and a few characters fly off in a German FA-233 Drache, a dual-rotor helicopter developed in 1940 and produced in extremely limited numbers. But a combination of unreliability and its factories being bombed caused it to have a virtually non-existent service life. But I'm willing to bet we paperclipped whoever developed it. To close the episode, we are shown a clip of the next team against Ori in the tournament, Pravda, or the Russians, moments after their victory over the Polish team. With several T-34s overlooking a burned-out twin-turret 7TP tank. The 7TP, or 7-ton, was a light tank produced by Poland from 1935 to 39, and saw action during the German-Soviet invasion of Poland in 1939, with some seeing service in German occupation divisions throughout the war. And there was also a single turret variant made with an anti-tank gun inside of it. And right after this, there's a brief clip of the German team leader in a Tiger I overlooking a field of destroyed Type 95 Ha-Go tanks from the defeated Japanese school. And if you look closely, you can also see a Type 45 C-Low and a Type 99 Ruh-Roh.
What the fuck? Taigi, aš nežinau, bet sakiau, kad darysiu kaip serijas, bet screw this shit. Gyvenimas yra gyvenimas. Žiūrim antrą dalį.
I wanted to skip this one, but there's some tank stuff in it, so I couldn't do it. But the first half is all plot. You do, though, get the backstory of why Miho was being so cringy about tankery. At the last tournament she was in at her old school, she lost her team the match because she went to help some people not drown, and her family disowned her for it. I personally think in a sport that's supposedly safe as tankery, that if you see someone in real danger, you'd be commended to go help them, but apparently that doesn't apply. You need to be in the way of shells that aren't going to hurt you. But in the flashback, the number on the turret of the Tiger tank she is in is 217, which is the turret number of tank ace Otto Carius, who was a Tiger tank commander in World War II. Then there's another 20 minutes of plot and practicing until the team goes looking for more tanks to beef up their numbers, and in the process they kind of explain the school aircraft carriers.
Why are we on a ship? To produce highly trained individuals capable of excelling in any field.
Miho and Hana find a 75mm KWK-40 L-43 high-velocity cannon for the Panzer IV that will upgrade it from a D model to an F2 model. In reality, this move was made in 1942 by the German army to move the Panzer IV from an infantry support role to an anti-tank role to take on the heavier Soviet vehicles. The History Club and Yukuri then find a French Char B tank in the river. Used by the French from 1936 to 1940, this tank made its name during the battle for France in 1940, and being a very difficult obstacle for the German panzers to...
Tai yra labai lėtas tankas. Ir jeigu bus greitas, aš tikrai neatsimenu, bet aš net neatsimenu, ar iš viso rodys jį. Nu, šiaip jo rodys, atsimenu kažkurioj daly, man atrodo šitoj. Ir vienu žodžiu, tu galėtum net spėti, jeigu tu esi priešas, tai tu galėtum spėti laisvai įlipti į šitą tanką, nes žiūrėkit. Labai lėtas tankas.
Which was not suited for countering a war of movement that the Germans were waging. And the sign next to it, when it is found, may be a reference to that.
Maximum of 60mm of armor, 75mm and 47mm guns. Guess it's better than the Type 89.
Sraustino Type 99, man atrodo.
Also, Yukuri's my spirit animal.
That's the way to go, Montgomery.
Say, isn't that a little... How about Guderian then?
They then journey into the ship to find the lost freshman team using a compass and in a closed metal space, somehow.
What? What the fuck?
And in the process find a Porsche Tiger, but more on that later.
Štai matosi tankas. Ir aš šitą tanką tikrai žinau. Daugumą tikriausiai žino. Jeigu esat, mokat dalykų apie tankus ir taip toliau. Taigi, tai būtų sutrumpintai Tiger 2P. Atrodo, ar 1P? Neatsimenu. Šiaip jo, 1P.
Because the Italians are never going to live down their World War II performance and it is remembered only to be a meme in history. But they show a few of their tanks for a second. This episode begins with Katusha, the leader of the Russian team, meeting with
Ta Katiušė yra kaip Stalinas.
Darjeeling, which may be
Oh.
a reference.
Palaukit, Minecraftas. Na, va.
to
Ta
Stalin and
Katiušė.
Churchill meeting
Oh,
in
god
Moscow.
damn.